Hi, this is Tanya Sheridan of In All Sassiness Designs, and today I'm going to teach you how to create this beautiful layout step by step from our new Cape Cod collection, and the layout is called Paradise Found. So if you're watching this video, you most likely already have your kit, which is awesome, and so I want to talk you through a couple of things first. I have created my layout on standard white daisy cardstock. However, for the layout that I am going to teach you through step by step, I decided to try something a little bit different so that you could decide which one you like, which variation you like the best. And so I've gone ahead and I've taken my white daisy cardstock and I've splattered it with the Periwinkle shimmer brush, okay? If you've not used a shimmer brush from Close to My Heart and are not sure how to splatter, it's a very simple process. You're gonna pull the shimmer brush open just like that. I typically will have a scrap piece of paper that I will just get a little bubble to make sure that the ink is coming through. You don't want a big clog when you're splattering. And then if you want a fine splatter, like most of this is, then it's easiest to use the cap of your shimmer brush as your tapping mechanism. And you just slowly tap and then move your brush all along where you want your shimmer to go. Now, if you like the big splatters, then certainly you can make a bigger pool and pull from the pool and get the bigger splatters. If you want an overall larger splattering, then you can use your finger. And so the finger, you'll notice that my splattering is much bigger and heavier, etc. For the dots, if these aren't big enough for you, it's kind of hard to get the big dots. They kind of just come at random, but you can squeeze your shimmer brush, hopefully you can see that, and get a little dab and then just kind of tap it until it falls like that, and you're gonna get the larger little blurb. So it's completely up to you. Of course, I think that the layout is absolutely gorgeous, just white with a white background, but I wanted to show you what it would look like if we use the shimmer brush just to add a little bit more color to the bases. Again, you can do the shimmer brush, not do the shimmer brush. You can do it heavy, you can do it lightly, whatever best works for you. Okay, so we're gonna actually slide the bases out for a second. And before we get going with creating our layout, we're gonna create this journaling piece here, okay? And so this is an optional piece. This is something that you don't have to do. You could do another photo there. I'm going to be using the Periwinkle ink from Close to My Heart. If you don't have the Periwinkle, a similar blue would work. You could use Bluebell if you have Bluebell, which was a color of the year a few years ago. It is now retired. Spring Iris is close from years back, or if you want another Close to My Heart color that would work well and complement the layout, Glacier would work very well as well. Okay, so we're gonna move these over just to get them out of the way for the moment, and I'm gonna bring in my scrap paper, and I want to direct you to the little pouch that's in your kit. And in this pouch, you will find this piece of white daisy cardstock. I believe it is 3x4, but we are going to double check just to make sure. Yes, it is 3x4. Okay, and so I'm just going to flip that over and put it right down on my paper. I'm going to pull out my Periwinkle ink pad and one of the blending brushes. These are awesome. You can wash them and use them over and over again. I have one for each color family, so I still clean them, but I keep my blues to my blues, etc. And they're incredibly soft. So I'm just gonna grab some ink from my ink pad, and then I am going to just kind of rub it in circular motion all over this piece of paper. Now, if you notice, the first time down, I dab it over on my scrap, and that's because I don't want really big blotches of color of where I first put my ink down. And I will be honest, there are times that I forget to do that, but I think that it looks much better if it's all blended and kind of the same coloring. I'm not going to do it super heavy because I do really want that kind of a cloudy look. I don't want it to be solid. If I had wanted it to be solid, then I could have just used a piece of Periwinkle cardstock, right? So I'm going to make sure that I kind of get to my edges a little bit. It's up to you, again, how thick you want that. And for me, I think this is the way that I am good. I want one little more splash of color there and just a little bit there more at the top, okay? So then I'm gonna go ahead and move my ink pad and my brush out of the way because I am done with that. I like to do the pieces like this first if I know what I'm gonna do when I'm designing, so that I have that part out of the way, and when I get down to creating, I can just go for it and create. Okay, so you will see that I have these now switched. We have a left and a right page. I am going to look at my paper, and I see that this one has a little bit more splattering kind of in the corner. So I want to use that one for my left page. So I'm going to go ahead and set the right out, and I'm just going to set this base down here. And then we're gonna pull out our pieces that we need. And so I know that we just used this little accent pack. I'm actually gonna set that aside for the moment. You're going to want to find your large circle. Most likely it was sandwiched in between the two pieces of white daisy of the cardstock. You're gonna want the large square paper with the happiness comes in waves. There are two pieces of the wood grain paper, and you are going to want the one that is narrower. So that's the one that we're going to use for that piece. And then there is a piece of this really soft periwinkle, like beachy design that's more monochromatic, and that is 12 inches across. So we're going to use that one. You're going to use a piece of the anchor. You'll see that this anchor goes across, okay? So on the other page, on the right page, there is a similar piece of this anchor paper, but the anchors are coming down. And so we want the piece that has the anchors going across. We also want a piece of this striped paper, and that's gonna be 12 inches. There should be 2 small strips. Make sure I got those both. Oops, I'm sorry. The small strip is for the other page. These strips are going to be on either side of the anchor there. This is the vertical one that I was telling you about the anchors. So that's going to go in our other set, as well as this piece that is narrow with the happiness and waves, and the narrower of this beautiful monochromatic blue and white print paper. And I believe that is all of the pieces that we need. We are going to need the piece that we cut, and you're going to need your sticker sheet. Okay, so now let's get started. The first thing that we're going to glue down is going to be the large square piece. Okay, and it is 11 by 11, so it's pretty much going to center within the base. You can decide if you want it exactly centered or not. That's totally up to you. And of course, if you prefer, you can switch and use this print and go a completely different way. I liked this piece. I think is a little bit more nautical. It has the anchors and all the fun beach life. And then this one has more of the bright, vivid colors. So really, truly what is gonna work for you. Okay, so I'm gonna just kind of use the marks on my Versa pad and put that down just like that. Versa matte, excuse me. Okay, so now that I have that one done, I'm gonna pull in the wood grain paper. And remember, I said this is the narrower of the two, and we are gonna angle it and adhere it. And you can be the master of how far you want to angle yours. It is completely up to you. I will give you a few measurements if that helps. I am more of a person who likes to eyeball, but that is just me. So this piece here, the left or the right-hand corner is at 11, and let's see, the other one, the upper left is about 8 1/4. So if you wanted to do the close to the same, you'll want to put the left hand one at about 8 1/4, and you want to angle it so that the upper right hand corner is at about 11. Okay, now you'll see that if I'm going that angle on this one, I'm not covering up this print. So it's really just kind of a matter, I only want a little bit of this to show. So a lot of it is just going to depend on how far down, how far up you are, exactly the placement of your square. And I am good with about like that. Do make sure that you don't come off of the edge of the base. Okay, so now that that piece is down, we're going to use our nautical piece with the print. You're not going to see a lot of this. You're just going to see little bits and pieces of it, which is what I really like because it kind of tones down the brightness of this very busy word paper. And you can decide, I don't think there's really a right or you know, incorrect way to do yours. I really like the little crab, and I would like him to show, but I think either way he's gonna get covered up in my print, so that's okay. So this is gonna go at about 2.5. So I'm gonna line it up from 2.5 to about 5.5, and then just take it all the way across the base, just like that, okay? Then what we're gonna do is you're gonna find that wide strip of the pattern paper that looks like this, and it's gonna go directly across. And this is gonna go from 3.5 to a little bit beyond 4.5, it looks like. A little bit high. So if it doesn't look centered, the objective is to be centered. So I'm just gonna wiggle mine a little bit below that half mark so that it goes all the way across. Okay, now you're gonna wanna take your anchor, and again, make sure your anchor strip is the one that goes horizontally and has, basically it should have one anchor all the way across. Now, I know that some of the pieces might be a tiny bit off from mine because I cut the paper so that it would specifically center the anchors on the paper itself. And so some of the pieces might be just a slight bit off from one another. And I am just going to center that to the best of my ability right across that striped piece to go all the way across there. Now, you will notice that on my paper, my pattern is just a little bit longer than my cardstock. That is an easy fix. Occasionally, some of the paper will be a little bit longer. And so I'm just gonna flip it to the back side and trim that off, just so that when I'm doing my measurements, it doesn't mess me up later, and it gives me exactly what I have going on. Okay, so we have the wood grain paper, we have all of the strips here. The next thing that we're gonna do is go ahead and adhere our circle. Now this circle was created with one of the Close to My Heart cartridges, but I couldn't get the image the way that I wanted it. There was one the same size on our Close to My Heart cartridge, but when I tried to blow it up, everything widened. So I actually created this image myself within Cricut and welded it together and sliced it, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. It looks just like the one that we had for on the Cricut cartridge itself. So I am gonna just add a little bit of adhesive, and I think I'm gonna move this over just so that it doesn't get on my layout, because my adhesive runner is gonna put adhesive a little bit wider than my piece because it is so narrow. You don't have to get every little element cut. You could, most certainly, but you don't have to get every little element cut or adhered. And I'm going to slide this mat back over, and it's up to you where you want yours to lie. I'll get mine untangled there. I like seeing this piece, this part up here, where it's welded together and having it separated. It is going to be a little bit tricky because it wants to flip on itself. So you just kind of want to get it laid out, and then you can make adjustments. So I want mine to go about 1/4 of an inch if that, from the left edge of the base. That's gonna kind of be my starting point. And then I'm just gonna play with it to get it where I want it. So it's a little bit sticky. Just kind of have to play with it. If you wanted to use a liquid glue, you could do that and just start at one point and then gradually go down. And just gluing it piece by piece, you might find more success or more ease at that. I know that I didn't get every little spot, so as I adjust, I can simply lift my pieces like up here with my finger and just go underneath it. Most of it's gonna lay down when you add the additional layers. And I'm gonna do a little bit of that here as well, just to kind of tack it down. Now, if I feel like it needs more tacking after I've done the sticker cluster, then I most certainly can go back and do that. Okay, so now we have our journaling piece, and that is this guy here. Sorry about that, friends. My camera tilted forward and started to fall on me. Okay, so what I was saying is if you like to journal and you want to use this as a journaling piece, I would do your journaling first and then attach this piece with foam tape. You could always do a placeholder in the meantime and so forth. So I know that I will probably do mine again, and I will just add it on top of this. So we're gonna add foam tape to this piece. You could also use a placeholder in your designs. Just cut a piece of 3x4, go ahead and adhere that with foam tape. And then once you do this piece with your sponging and your journaling, then you could just add it directly on top of it. I do that quite often as well. Okay, so I'm gonna pull just the top piece of the film off, and I'm gonna put this at about the 10.5 mark. I'm gonna find the angle that I like the best. Sorry, 9.5 it looks like. Each one's gonna be a little bit different. So I don't want it to be secure just yet. So that's one of the reasons that I only pull off the film on one, plus it saves time. And then I'll go back once I have my layout finished, and that's when I will add or pull off the rest of the film. That way, if I need to move it, it's a lot easier to replace and realign one piece of foam tape versus the entire thing of foam tape. Okay, so now this piece is in your bag, and this is a little bit bigger than 5 and 7, so it's about 7.25 by 5.25. This is a mat, so this is not a placeholder. It's actually a white daisy mat for your photograph. If you think that you're going to use a photograph that's not 5 by 7, then you might want to wait on this piece and cut, you know, your white daisy to whatever size you would like. Or you could still do, so this was designed for 5 by 7. You could do a 4 by 6 photo very easily and just have a wider mat. I do that quite often. You will notice, if you have not crafted with me before, that I like to use a lot of foam tape. It's just kind of my thing. Now I'm going to position this. I have my foam tape over here, so I might need to cut a piece off. I want to position it right. I think mine will fit perfectly. If this part was overlapping too much, if I had gone too close to the end, then it wouldn't overlap well over this one. So that's just a personal choice of how much you want to go. I do want to follow this same angle of my wood grain, so I'm kind of paying attention to that when I'm putting this down. And then I'm going to leave my mat just like that, so that if I wanted to lift this up, I can go ahead and add to my journaling, either hand journaling, or if I wanted to, you know, crop a piece, if I wanted to put a photo there, or attaching it if this was just a, you know, a placeholder. And then once I do that, then I can pull off all of the foam tape there. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to that little bag that had the little pieces in it, and we're gonna pull out some of the pieces in here. And so you are gonna be looking for a piece of our zip strip, which has white print on the white print on one side. It also has details of what the paper pack is. If you're looking at the whole thing, what colors were used. They're very, very handy. They extend past our 12 by 12 piece of pattern paper, but they give you that information so that if you were to use a paper pack later, you know what paper pack it is. However, I love to use the pattern side because it's usually a more intricate and detailed piece, and I just love them. So this piece was pre-cut for you. You can see that I cut at an angle right on my piece, right on the edge of this shell. But if you can't cut it that sharp, you can cut it wherever you want. Mine is going to cut into the shell if I do it right there. And so I think I want to cut, I'm going to cut that one off. And so that I can have my angle and not cut into any of my shells. That is, of course, a personal choice. And then I'm going to bring this down so that it overlaps past my 11 by 11 paper. And I also want a little bit of that to show underneath. So it's really going to just depend on how you cut yours, if you kept that shell or not, or yours might have been from a different section. And so you might have different, shells and that type of thing. Then what we're going to do is we're going to pull out our sticker sheet. And on our sticker sheet, we want the Paradise Found. Now you can use the other titles if you want. You have a wealth of stickers that are going to be left from this project, which is awesome because I always love the stickers. And I'm going to attach foam tape to the bottom of my sticker. That is a personal choice. You can do it flat if you would like. I am going to use the wide tape because it fits almost exactly across. And I do have a tendency to sometimes cut mine too long or too short. If it's too long, then just snip it at the end. If it's too short, then just add another little piece. For this one, I am going to add another little piece because I don't want this end to stick down. And again, our Close to My Heart foam tape is the best because it has the measurements that I use the most. That's just one of the reasons, but it fits so perfectly under zip strips and so forth. Okay, so if you want to check to make sure that you didn't exceed, you can do that. I just exceeded a tiny fraction on one end, but for the most part, we're good. Okay, so now this piece, this sticker, is going to just cover that zip strip slightly. And you want the sticker to extend past the brown and onto the patterned paper there, okay? Now you'll notice that I don't have as much wiggle room on my shells, and that's okay. That's because I cut off that shell on the end, okay? Then you're gonna come and you're gonna find this one up here. It is to the left of the seagull. And you'll notice that I used the full entire sticker. So you could use partial of the sticker if you wanted, but for this one I used the whole thing. And I want to make it so that the inset of the dovetail or the pennant, whatever you call it, lines up with, and I'll lift it up in just a second so you can see it better. But I want it to line up with that word paper. So here's the center, and you'll see that the word paper goes right into that. I just think that that gives it a little bit more character and a little bit more fun. Okay, so then also in your little bag, you will find this piece. This is about 2.5 inches, and we are gonna dovetail that. So to dovetail, you just cut to the center and then cut from one edge to the other edge, just like that. And yours might make a difference. If my piece were cut and landed in the white, then I might shorten the strip a little bit, because I do think that the dovetail looks better on a color than just on the white. But again, that is up to you. I'm gonna add my adhesive to it. And I'm gonna put it in the upper left-hand corner. And my mat has slid just a little bit. So I want it down about 1/4 of an inch. There's no rhyme and reason. It doesn't have to be exact. Whoops. Just like that. Then we're gonna take the sticker sheet that I just dropped to the floor, and we're gonna use this piece here. Now, I used this one, and I only used 3 shells, but I'm not that great at eyeballing all the time. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull it off. And you can do it the other way if you want. I'm gonna cut it right there in between those shells. And then I'm gonna return this piece that I'm not using back to my sticker sheet. And then this is going to be a pennant coming down. And so coming down, I wanna do right about 1/4 of an inch, but I do wanna get it all the way to my edge. So I do better to rotate it, the paper. I can see that this one I got a little crooked. I'm gonna straighten that out. And I want it to be right about 1/4 of an inch, and I want it to go straight down. And that way I can make sure that I have it right on my edge. Okay, so then we're gonna come and we're gonna do a cluster right here. And so the center point of that is gonna be this large sand dollar sticker. It's right to the right of Welcome to the Beach. And we're gonna put that up on foam tape. Which that happens to be the last of that roll. So I'm gonna use my narrow. So one of the great things about Close to My Heart's foam tape is it comes in 2 heights and 2 widths. And so this is our thin foam tape that I use religiously. And the regular, or what I call the thick, is a little bit higher. But both of them have 2 rolls included, 1 narrow and 1 wide. And so this one was the narrow. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the film off the back. And this one, I want to go kind of, I just want it to be my focal point. So I want it to pretty much overlap the anchor piece, this piece here with the stripes, and then my circle. So it's gonna go just like that, okay? Then we want to find the little blue shell, which is right up here, the really dark one. It is directly above the hat, if that helps you. And for this one, I'm just going to use a little bit. If you have any of Close to My Heart's foam dots left, this is the perfect size for the dots because they're circular and it covers all the spaces. But if you don't, it's okay. And so this is gonna go, it's not really overlapping. It tucks just slightly underneath and it's gonna go there. And then the third one that we're gonna use is going to be this one up here. It's a starfish and it's directly below the Beach Babe. And that one also is a little one. And so we're gonna take our foam tape and we're gonna add that. And I am going to add that one just about right there, okay? All right, so now all of our pieces are put together on this side of the base. We're gonna pull out the little bag of Bluebell sequins. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Bluebell was a color of the year a few years ago. And so these are not periwinkle, but if you look at them closely, you will find some that would look well and complement this layout. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take just this little lid that I have so they don't fly everywhere, and I'm gonna tap my sequins out, and then I'm gonna find the ones that I think look the best. Some are gonna look better than others, okay? And so I liked the iridescent kind of looking ones. That's what I chose to use, but you can do any kind of a mixture that works well. I think since it's a different medium, I don't even think that you notice that it's a different color, as long as it just, you know, like I said, complements it. Okay, and so I'm gonna then take my mini glue dots and I'm gonna put those right underneath. I actually put the sequin to the glue dot. I find that usually that's easier for me. You might have a different system. And I'm gonna do one above and one below my stickers that I've already placed. And these are on more or less on the wreath itself, okay? Then I'm gonna come back, so there's 2 there. I wanna do a cluster of 3. And so for this cluster, I did ones that were just a little bit different from each other in different sizes. You don't have to do that, but I liked the way that it looked. So I'm just gonna make a triangle, more or less. It doesn't have to be a straight triangle. See how I'm putting that to the dot? But just to kind of create that cluster of 3, I think that looks really nice together. There are some white sequins in this, some kind of opaque white ones. Those would look really nice as well. Actually, I think I'm gonna use this dark one down here. This has been one of my favorite sets of loose sequins I think that we've ever had. I've used them over and over again, and I just absolutely love the colors together. Okay, so I have my 3 there. Then I wanna come up here and I wanna do 3 more. And so these, I'm going to do a larger one in the middle and then 2 smaller ones on either side. You can see where my paper just needs to be reinforced just a little bit. Let's see. And of course, everyone's gonna have different sequins in their kits because I basically just did a spoonful. I do believe these are still available on our websites. Oops, that one's too big. I don't want a big one. Here's a smaller one. Okay, and so this one's gonna go up there, just like that. Okay, so now we have all 3. I'm actually gonna leave my sequins on the little tray because we're gonna use them on the other side. And then the final touch for this layout is I'm gonna come back with my diamond clear stickles, and I'm gonna do just a little bit, just a little dollop in the center of each of the sequins. Now, if you wanted a more solid and you didn't want the glittery look, so if you maybe wanted your layout to be more masculine, the deep water liquid pearls from Ranger, that would work really well too, and it wouldn't have that glittery iridescent look. But I love glitter, so that's the route that I went for on this one. Okay. So now what we're gonna do, this page is finished. You're gonna add your journaling and you're gonna add your photo, your 5x7 photo there, or whatever size that you choose to do. So I'm gonna move this one out, or just over, I guess, for a second. We're gonna go ahead and pull in our other base and just do a quick check. Nothing is lined up side by side, so we are good to go ahead and move this over so that it can dry. I do try to double check that a piece of paper isn't coming all the way across in case I need to line it up. Okay, so one thing that you will notice on this side is that there's 3 photos here. Now I didn't include paper for those in your kits because those are just placeholders. That's what those are. But if you wanted, you could always add white daisy yourself and go from there. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do on this page is to position this piece here. And I'm gonna line this up because it's a little bit tricky. It goes at 1 3/4. And so I'm gonna go ahead and put my adhesive on, but I'm not gonna tack it down completely because I wanna be able to lift this side, but I feel like you need to have this piece in place to be able to judge where you want everything else to go. So I'm gonna adhere it down on my left side, and then on my right side, I am going to take my roll of foam tape and just kind of position them there so that I can have some wiggle room, okay? So we're gonna do several pieces. The first one that you want to look for is going to be this piece. It is the one with the nautical and the monochromatic. And so we're gonna go ahead and put adhesive down on that one. If you do want to, let me give you something to gauge. So these 2 pieces are the same pattern, actually. Yeah, they're the same pattern. So we're using one side of one and one side of the other. To help you gauge, if you were to hold them side by side, we are using the narrow one, okay? That's the one that we're using first. And so we're gonna take our adhesive and I'm gonna pull this up now because this was just to kind of hold it for my own. I want to go at an angle, but my angle is gonna get smaller as I go. And so this first piece is really, truly tucked. And it's up to you really as to how much you tuck it. I have it at about 8.5 on my original. So that's gonna be about the way that one goes there, okay? Now we're gonna take the anchor piece and this little piece of pattern paper, okay? And we're gonna add adhesive to the little strip. This is not going to be centered, so it is gonna go about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch to the left of the right edge. And it should be a little bit shorter. If you want more definition, you could cut off 1 or 2 notches, but it should be shorter than the anchor paper, okay? So then we're gonna go ahead and put adhesive on that. And when we glue this one down, you want a tiny, tiny bit of white showing in between the monochromatic pattern paper and this strip, but then it's gonna come down and almost touch this wood grain paper here. So it doesn't completely touch, but it's gonna come really, really close. And that's gonna give you that kind of expanding, kind of fanning look that we're going for. Then we're gonna take this piece, which is the wider piece, and this one is gonna tuck just slightly underneath the edge. So just slightly, all of the pieces line up at the bottom. Rather, these 2 big pieces, I should say. Okay. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go and grab this really cute little circle, which is very similar to the first one that I did. And we're gonna add adhesive to the back. Again, you don't have to get every little part of it, right? And you can add this one however you want. I have it very, very close to my edge, both the side and the bottom. So maybe a 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch, somewhere in that wiggle room. Then we're gonna use the Sunshine and Sea sticker. And to adhere that one, you're going to use the foam tape. And so that is going to go at an angle right across. And you can determine how high up you want to go. I'm going to do mine a little bit lower on this one. Then the next one that we're going to use is going to be this circle journaling. Again, if you want to journal first, that would probably be a better idea, because then you have a flat surface to journal on. Most of the time for these, I don't really journal. I'll do like some bullet points, maybe a place or a date or an expression or quote or something like that, but not my regular full-on journaling. Because I think it, you know, it's just a little accent piece. Okay, and so this one, I'm just gonna pull one piece of the foam tape off, and I'm gonna do it just so that it almost hits the corner. Not quite, oops, I got it a little bit higher. So it basically almost gets the corner of both the right edge, the bottom edge. And I think we are good with that. Nothing overlaps, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull that. Then you're gonna find that second starfish, which is this one here. You're gonna pull that. And that is actually gonna go right on this inset. Now this one is gonna overlap just slightly. So if you don't wanna put 2 pieces of foam, you could just do 1. I would like mine to be elevated more, so I am gonna do foam on foam on the left side and then just foam flat on the right, okay? And then we have our seahorse, which is this little guy here. Now, I took my seahorse and I fussy cut him. And it's up to you if it's easier for you to leave it on the base or if it's easier for you to cut. If you have nonstick scissors, I think it's probably easier to cut straight from the sticker sheet, but we also don't want to mess up your stickers. So that part is up to you. I'm gonna cut just around the little nose. I am gonna round around the nose because it's pretty squared off if you don't. And then I might need to go back and cut right inside very closely because it's hard to with the extra pieces hanging on. There we go. I am gonna soften these edges up around, I don't know if that's I guess that's a fin. I was gonna say wing, but I guess it's a fin. And then go around the tail. Now you could cut all of the white off if you wanted to. I think I am good with mine. I cut one more little piece here. Okay. I just think the sticker is so cute. Now we're gonna add foam tape to the back. Just like that. And on his tail. And then I'm gonna have to do a really narrow piece on the side of the fin because the tape is gonna be too wide to fit in this space. So I'm just gonna cut my foam in half like that, just to give some extra support. Okay, and so this is kind of sitting, the tail is kind of sitting on top of the sunshine and sea, just a little bit. You wouldn't even notice it if you weren't paying super close attention. and you can rotate it as much as you want. I feel like you need a little bit of that white showing to kind of pop him up from the patterned paper. Okay, so then what we're gonna do is we're gonna move along and we're gonna add our stickers over here. And so I know with my crab that I want to put foam tape on the back. So I'm gonna add my foam tape, and I'm gonna make sure that I do the foam tape more downward, because I know that I'm gonna leave one piece that I'm not gonna pull the film off of. And so it's easier. My little crab is hopping around over here. To do it that way. Now, if you already have your photographs done, you can add or know which photographs that you're gonna use. And I know some of you do that. You can go ahead and add those photographs. What I did was I went ahead, kind of like I was telling you with the journaling, and I cut mats that aren't going to be mats. So they're basically placeholders. Normally I would use Close to My Heart's placeholders. However, this is a non-traditional size because I think these are 3.5 by 5, I believe. And so I don't have the placeholders. But for me, my mind works better this way, and then I just add the photo to the top. That, of course, is up to you. And so I about want the same edge. So again, this would be, it's not really a mat, it's just kind of a pretend photograph. And it's going to be 3.5 by 5. So I've got about 1/4 of an inch margin on, well, this one's I'm a little bit off, but on both the left, right, and top. Maybe a little bit wider. I also, if I'm popping a photograph up, I tend to put, if I don't want a mat, so if I don't want any of the mat to show, I still tend to use something else like cardstock directly under the photo, because I feel like sometimes the photo isn't strong enough to sit up on the foam tape. So that's just a little quirk that I do. I mean, each person, of course, is different, but that's a little quirk that I found for myself. And I'm actually going to just scooch this one over a little bit so that it lines up better. And then my third one is gonna go directly in the center of those two mats. Again, about the same margin on the left and right, but you're gonna have a little bit more wiggle room in between. And so that's why I think it's better to do the top and the bottom first, so that you kind of see where that wiggle room is gonna be. So we're gonna be about right there. Now that I know where those are, I'm gonna come back with my crab. And I purposefully am going to leave this piece of film on and pull the other two off. And that way it can be lifted later and the photograph set underneath it. And so I do want it to cover both of those two corners. Again, that's up to you. I have a little splatter on mine. I'm not sure where that came from, but that's okay. Okay, and then I want to add this little guy, which is one of the pieces of seaweed. It's gonna be the blue right in the center. Now for this guy, if you want, you could put 2 layers of foam on one side and it'd be totally even. I kind of like the off, which I did not do in this one because it looks more like, it gives it just more depth, I think. So this I want to tuck underneath, just like that. And I have those two done. Then we're gonna come on this side and we're gonna use this sticker, which is actually at the very top. It's beside the My Happy, or the Happy Place, which we'll use next. So we're gonna pull that sticker off, and that is gonna go flush right here on the side, okay? Then we're gonna go ahead and pull the My Happy Place. And for this one, I am gonna do the extra foam. So I'm gonna do 3 pieces, oops, across the bottom. just like that. And then on the point, I'm going to add another piece. And on the center, I'm going to add another piece. And then you can choose if you want the base one up on second piece or not. I do not, so I'm not going to do it that way. And we're going to only remove the center and the left. We're going to leave the other one. And we're going to try to center it the best to our ability that way. That way when this sticks down, it's going to give kind of that slanted. If you don't like that look, then simply just do one piece of layering in between. Okay, so now that we have all of our stickers into position, we're going to come back and add the sequins. And again, there's no right or wrong. It's whichever ones you like the best. I'm going to do a cluster of 3 right over here. And I am going to try to use some different sizes. So I have a big one, a medium one, and then I'm going to do a small one off to the side. And again, it's not a perfect triangle, but it kind of creates that triangle and carries your eyes across the layout, which is what I'm going for. Down here, I'm going to do another cluster of 3. This is going to be on the circle and below the circle. So one is on the circle, the big one. I'm going to do one on the pattern paper to carry the eye over there. And then I'm going to do one additional one that is going to be up here. So this one's a little bit, you know, more spread out than my original, but I'm good with that. And then we're going to come over to this side. And we're going to put the sequins there. I have the large ones right beside the pennant sticker, and then I'm going to do the smaller ones. And then the last step for this layout, or this side of the layout, is going to be to come back with those stickles or with the liquid pearls, whichever you prefer. Another option would also be, hang on one second, let me show you. A really pretty option would also be the liquid pearls in the white opal. I think that that would be a very nice addition as well. My bottle is getting a little bit close to being empty. If that happens, you want to shake it off to the side so that it doesn't bubble up. Sometimes the little tips get clogged. There we go. So I also try to unclog them not near my artwork, because if they do spit or splatter, I don't want it to splatter on my artwork itself. So I'm just doing a tiny little dab. When these dry, they look really beautiful. They take on, especially the iridescent ones, the color of those iridescents. Okay, friends, so that is it. That is the right side. Let me pull the left side back in that we just created with the splatter. And then you can decide which one that you like the best. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email address is inallsassiness@gmail.com. That's INALLSASSINESS@gmail.com. Have a great day, and whatever you do, make it sassy.